What's going on, kids? Today we're going to be doing an oil change on this Jeep Wrangler Sahara. It's got the normal V6 that all the Wranglers have. We're going to start out by taking a look at the VIN to find out exactly what we need as far as getting our oil, getting the right filter, getting the right amount of oil, and all of that stuff. So we're going to look inside the driver's side door and find that VIN tag. So right here on the inside, we can see our VIN tag, and if we scan across, there's the barcode if we have a barcode reader, or the VIN is right there below. So we can take those digits and copy and paste those right into Identifix if we need to, or we can look at the manufacture date and the 10th digit of the VIN. It's made in 4 of 16, so early 16. This is the 2016 model. If we're unsure of the engine size, we can pop the hood on this. And that's what we're working with, a whole bunch of plastic. So we'll have to pull off that plastic and see what's underneath there. But let's bring this thing up and see what we got underneath. All right, so we're underneath the car, and I've got my catch pan lined up with the drain plug underneath the car, and I've got my 13mm wrench that we're going to use to crack this drain plug free. You can see it's leaking a little bit because I already pre-cracked it loose, but we want to put the wrench on, make sure it's on there nice and snug, there's not a lot of slop in there, and then we're going to spin it counterclockwise as if we were staring at the head of the bolt, because that's going to loosen this thing up. And remember, on the other side of this thing is about, well, in this car, 6 quarts of engine oil, and as soon as I pull that plug, it's going to come out. So I want to remove this plug. I've already cracked it free with the wrench, so I can remove it by hand. And if I did this right, the oil will go directly into my catch pan. So there's my oil coming out. It's dark, but that's fine, as long as it's not milky. If it's milky, that would kind of let us know that we've got a bit of a coolant leak somewhere, it's going into the engine. So we just let this drain out. The engine's kind of warm. This person just drove their vehicle in here, so you can hear it flowing out pretty quickly, which is what we want to have happen. It's not a bad idea to let your car run for a minute or two before you do an oil change, just to warm it up so the oil actually comes out. All right, so we're just about done draining out here, so I'm going to put the plug back in. And I'm going to thread this in by hand. Everything we do goes in by hand first. That way we know we're not cross-threading anything. And then I'll grab my torque wrench, and the torque spec for this drain plug is 20 pound-feet. So I've got a 13 mil on the end of my torque wrench, and again, my torque wrench is set to 20 pound-feet. Got the 0 there, and we're at 20. If you would focus, there we go. So we're on the 20 line at the 0, and I'm going to put this on the drain plug. And this will ratchet just like a normal ratchet until we get to our torque spec of 20 pound-feet. When I put, just a little bit of pressure on the end of this torque wrench, you'll hear it click and you'll see the head kick over. So that lets us know that we are right there at 20 pound-feet. The first couple pushes on this, it did actually ratchet, and then once we got to 20 pounds, it started to click. So I could push through that if I wanted to, but I don't because I'm already at the torque spec. And now I need to clean underneath here. See, you got a couple of drips of oil. You always want to make sure you clean up underneath here, because you don't want the car to come back with a quote-unquote oil leak because you just didn't clean up after yourself. Good to bring this car down and start taking a look at the filter. So the hood pops on these Jeeps are a little bit different. Instead of having a latch on the inside of the car that like we're used to seeing, they've got these kind of rubber straps on the hood, and you flip this down and kind of pull it out of its clip. And there's another one on the other side that I've already done. And reach inside and push the lever over like we normally do, and put this thing up with the hood prop. All right, so now the hood's up, we need to try and find out where that oil filter is going to go. And like most cars, When you pop the hood, all you see is plastic. So the filter for this one is actually underneath this plastic cover. Set this down. If you look on the bottom of these do need to go back on. There's a whole bunch of sound deadening stuff to work with GDI engines because they don't sound real good. They kind of sound like typewriters. So they put a whole bunch of sound deadening stuff on there to quiet these motors down. We've got a 24 millimeter socket head on the top of that, so I had to jump up to my 1/2 inch ratchet, and we'll put this on here and start cracking this thing loose. So once that comes out, once it cracks free, you can start spinning it out by hand. And be careful because there is oil inside of this. So we'll pull this whole piece up. See, there's our old filter. Flip that upside down so we're not dumping oil all over the place. And that's where our O-ring goes, our new one. That's the one that we need to replace. And then there's the O-ring on the old filter. So all of this is going to get replaced. So this will just pop right off, and we can recycle that. Back here at the bench, and it's time to swap out these O-rings. I can stick a screwdriver or a pick, and we want to sneak this underneath the old O-ring. And don't gouge the plastic or anything, but then just pop this thing off. And then put our new O-ring back on the exact same rung that came off of. And this is going to get oil on it since there's oil all over this. If we were doing a regular oil filter, we'd make sure we put a little bit of a ring of oil around that square seal. Take our new filter, and that's just going to pop on here, and you should hear it click. Okay. So now that's actually on, and we'll go and thread this back in. All right, so back in front of the car, we've got our old housing with our new filter, our new O-ring, and we'll just set that back down in exactly where the old one came out of, and we'll start threading this in by hand. Again, everything by hand because this is plastic going into something made of metal. And then grab our ratchet and tighten this thing up. All right, we don't need to go crazy tight on that one. Again, it's plastic. There's an O-ring to keep oil from coming out. So once that's snug, we're going to be in good shape. All right, back on the bench, we've got our 6 quarts of synthetic 5W20. There's actually a little bit more in this jug because it was one that was already filled from filming earlier. So we want to find out where our oil goes. So we've got our oil fill cap that says SAE 520. So we have the right stuff. Give that a quarter turn. We can check the bottom of this to again make sure there's no milky stuff on here from burning coolant in our oil. And I will put a funnel in there. And this next part's going to get messy, so I'm going to put down the camera. So I'm going to put in about 5.5 quarts, even though this car called for 6, because it's a whole lot easier to add more than it is to take some out after it's already in. All right, now we're going to do our first level check. The dipstick is on the far side of this motor. And I am right up at the top of my full line, which is all right, that's where I want to be. Because then I'm going to start the car, and we're going to check to make sure that we don't have any oil pressure lights on. We also want to make sure that we're not leaking from underneath. All right, so no oil pressure lights. I think we're all right. Let's look underneath the car and make sure we're not leaking anything out on the bottom. Looks good. So we can turn this thing off. And then we're going to have to check our level one last time. Wipe the dipstick clean. Put this back in. And I check my level, and now I'm kind of at the bottom of the dipstick, and that's fine because now my oil filter housing's full. So I'm going to go back and add, about that half quart that I left shy. Once you're done there, you may need to reset an oil change reminder lamp. You can check an Identifix to see how to do that. Just make sure there isn't a light on the dash that says change oil soon or service engine soon or something like that. If you have any questions, please feel free to shoot me an email, and be good. Till next time.